Now we're on Genesis 3, the third book of Genesis. Now the serpent was more crafty than any other wild animal that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, "Did God say you shall not eat from any tree in the garden?" The woman says to the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of the tree in the garden, but God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the middle of the garden, nor shall you touch it, or you shall die." But the serpent says to the woman, "You will not die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be open, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. When the eyes of both were open, and they knew that they were naked, they, they sewed fig leaves together and made long clothes for themselves. On verse 8, they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden at the time of the evening breeze. And the man and the wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees of the garden. But the Lord God called to the man and says to him, "Where are you?" He said, "I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself." He said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you not to eat?" The man said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me fruits from the tree, and I ate." Then the Lord God says to the woman, "What is this that you have done?" The woman said, "The serpent tricked me, and I ate." And the Lord God says to the serpent, "Because you have done this, cursed are you among all animals and among all wild creatures. Upon your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers, and will strike at hers. He will strike your head, and you will strike his heel." To the woman, he said, "I will greatly increase your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children, yet your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you." And to the man he said, "Because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten of the tree about which I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you, and toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the plant of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, until you return to the ground. For out of it you are taken, you are dust, and to dust you shall return. In verse 20, the man named his wife Eve because she was the mother of all living. And the Lord God made garment of skin for the man and for his wife, and clothed them. Then the Lord God said, see, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. And now he shall reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. Therefore, the Lord God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. He drove out the man, and at the east of the Garden of Eden he placed a cherubim and a sword flaming turning to guard the way of the tree of life. So let's discuss what we just read. Genesis 3. A, a serpent temptation and human disobedience. The serpent is not an alien being, but a simple one of the garden, most intelligent and crafty animal that the Lord God had made. That's verse 1. Verse 3. The woman repeated the command given by God in Genesis 2, verse 17. But then attached her own additional prohibition. Nor shall you touch it. Once she disobeyed her own prohibition touching the fruit, it will be easier to take the next step and disobey God's prohibition, eating the fruit. Verse 4 to 6. The serpent assured the woman that you will not die. In an odd way, the serpent will be correct. God will not cause the human to die in the day that you eat of it. However, the human will come to know good and evil by experiencing new intensities of pain as a consequence of their rebellion. The man's quick willingness to eat the forbidden fruit along with the woman suggests equal responsibility for the disobedience act. On verse 7, the human now know that they were naked. They experienced shame and the pain of an intimate human bond that has been broken. The innocent trust and the openness of their former relationship must now be hidden behind clothes made of fig leaves. The prickly fig leaves would make for uncomfortable clothing. Verse 8, the portrait of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the evening implies God's close relationship and involvement with the creation. God's closeness contrasts with the human sudden desire for distance as they hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God. In verse 14 to 15, the serpent is directly cursed by God. The curse provides an ancient explanation for why the snake has no legs and why human beings have a negative reaction to snake. Verse 7, 16, and 17. Neither the woman nor the man are directly cursed, as was the serpent, but negative consequences flow from the disobedient act. For the woman, the pain of childbirth will increase, and the man shall rule over you. This inequality contrasts with God's original will for mutuality and interdependence between the man and the woman in Genesis 2, verse 18 to 21, and verse 17 to 19. Like the woman, and unlike the serpent, the man is not directly cursed. However, God declared cursed is the ground because of you. The man will struggle in hard toil and sweat to produce food from the ground. The earliest story of human creation in Genesis 2, verse 7, had already recounted the man's origin from the dust of the ground. Now, the first time human death is explicitly mentioned, to dust you shall return, verse 3, Genesis 3, verse 19. However, the original prohibition in Genesis 2, verse 17 had decreed death on the very day that the forbidden fruit would be eaten. God does not enforce this death sentence immediately. God mercifully allowed the human to continue to live for some time and produce children for future generation. In verse 21, God graciously replaced the prickly fig leaves clothes in verse 2, Genesis 2, verse 7, the softened garment of skin. With God graciously replaced the prickly fig leaf clothing with softer garment of skin. Verse 22 to 24. God sealed the entrance of the garden to make sure the human do not take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. The cherubim are winged creatures who are half human and half beast. They guard holy areas. For example, cherubim guard the holiest section of the temple and Jerusalem and 1 King 8, verse 6 to 7. This is the reading for Genesis 3.